choip, choip, choip. Choip, choip, choip.
The road to RollerCoaster Tycoon status is paved with gold, in a polka dot pattern. No wait, that's vomit, it's paved with vomit. Very chunky vomit. Doesn't even gloop through these grates. Are those cucumber slices? Maybe they're trying to fight the theme park industry's image problem when it comes to junk food. Well, at least your guests are being troopers about it. The closest thing to a story in this game are some scenario descriptions, and maybe a few challenges on later levels. Otherwise, build theme parks and drain peeps of as much money as possible. So no gameplay distractions really. Visually it's a mixed bag. It's aged noticeably. It has the standard issue with natural textures in this realm, but the scenery greenery still looks great. Sure, you can see the age here too on some of the trees, but just look at those bushes. And some of the trees replicate that hazy see-through effect as well. Looks lovely, especially from far away, as long as the tree is based on something that actually exists, and you have the skills to make the terrain play ball. I do not. Ugh, that's an unpleasant contrast. Some elements look grungy. It can look a bit unpleasant if you don't have enough lighting. This light show is impressive. And sometimes when you're creating a themed area, there's one piece of the puzzle missing. That leaves a sour taste in your mouth. But in defense of the visuals, while the building blocks don't have every single possible thing that you could want, its selection is impressive. Or at the very least, it's impressive enough, considering its age, giving the creative and patient immense power. The tools needed for those skillful enough to make most things look like whatever they want, given enough elbow grease, converted into clicking. And some of these can look brilliant. You play some rides and work towards the objectives, but on oh so many occasions my sense of park aesthetics and economic efficiency were at odds. Sometimes I simply disregarded the amount of space the scenario gave me and crammed those attractions in densely, to create clogged causeways of carousing, cash-coughing, capitalist, consumerist carnivaliers, also known as a tourist trap, adjusting values to get the perfect price point, figuring out ways of getting more of their dosh without overextending yourself. Aha! I'll charge 10 cents for bathroom admission. Insert evil laugh. And other times I just get sidetracked placing scenery, playing around, trying to develop a theme that I believe the peeps are only programmed to partially appreciate. My guess is they see an element near them or a mass of trees or something, and then ding, they go nice scenery. I doubt they go, wow, this is really well thought out. I feel like I'm in a graveyard. For me at least, the game had a nice balance. In that there were moments where I just had to go all Minecraft for no reason. In between the park management, the placing of stores, amenities, rides, presumably using mind control to figure out what the peeps think of your pricing structure, and then fiddling until perfect, trying to get rides that provide higher levels of excitement while keeping the intensity low, so that they can cater to as much of your clientele as possible. Finally, we reach the meeting point between the numbers and art. Roller coaster design. The mechanics allow for easy snapping of different track pieces, plus an autocomplete function that can really despise you if you give it a hard enough puzzle to solve. And here you can get just as sidetracked, maybe even more so, changing and rechanging your design until you get something that won't kill your guests. Theoretically, I don't think they can die. But in all fairness, I didn't pursue that. A whole lot of time can go into trying different coaster and track pieces, but here is perhaps a good point at which to mention the unrefinements. Because even though this game has a really long tutorial, taking me 3 hours to complete, and that's with me skipping 1 or 2 sections, it was still really hard to figure out coaster design. What did the peeps find exciting and what did I find intense? I didn't even know that those concepts were as important as mentioned until I read an online FAQ, and I was reticent to continue, and instead opted for trial and error, flailing about. I mean honestly, what is negative G? I'm not a roller coaster engineer. Must revise list. Brain surgeon, rocket scientist, roller coaster engineer. A great deal of my time went into experimenting towards a successful one, quite often ending in something that was too intense or not exciting enough for the money and effort, leading to me having to start from scratch. Besides that, changing prices can be finicky. For instance, how do toppings work and how much more can you charge if you add them? I mean, we're working in sense more profit at times, and the consumer experimentation can take a while here. Did I overshoot? And the game does come with expansion packs included, which is nice, but they probably didn't have this content in mind when designing the original levels. Yet you can unlock stuff from the expansion for these original levels. And because I tried to save the new content for the later levels, I didn't really partake of much of it. Only now, a year maybe more after I originally played it, do I realize that I love the building blocks for Planet Zoo, a game I played recently and will review later in the future, were present in the Wild expansion. And that makes sense because these two games are made by the same company. Over a decade apart, but still. Even if that fence is quite low and flimsy. Plus, the research system is strange. Pick your rate, price, and priorities. The rest is a surprise. And progress restarts per level, meaning you unlock stuff randomly, sometimes things you've already seen, and other times new exciting stuff. And you probably won't see the full selection available. Especially since one piece of scenery counts as much as an invention as a full-blown ride. Yeah, I'm sure these things took the same amount of effort to create. Sure, there are a lot of coasters, but I could not really figure out what they were all for. Why one was better than the other. So when the research gave me a new one, it really wasn't that exciting. Oh great, now I have to figure out how this thing works. When, as said, I haven't figured out most of the ones at my disposal. A common issue for the genre? It's technically repetitive, but the fun of getting sidetracked get me going through a fair amount of scenarios. But eventually I got antsy and stopped, before I got to create the dream multi-theme behemoth. The scenarios have different objectives, like earn this much ride income, have this many guests, impress a VIP, etc. And apprentice entrepreneur tycoon levels can be gained. Not that hard, but it gets harder. Have less space to work with, build on islands, etc. I wanted to save the new content for the new levels, but I was a bit drained before I reached them. So I'd suggest, at least to some of you, that you create your own scenario with a massive build area, your preferred challenges, objectives, money, and maybe even rewards. And very important, remember to turn off infinite funds. Unless you want to play in the sand a bit, and then go to town. Create your dream theme park. Ideally, you'll find out when to do this before getting bored. As hard as that may be for some of us to figure out such an abstract hypothetical. Lastly, in terms of unrefinement, the music, I think it's good. The problem is, I didn't really hear that much of it. For two reasons. Firstly, you can only hear the music when you zoom out a certain extent or more. Too close and you just hear the noises of your theme park. Which is nice, but it means that usually while doing the building, you don't really get to listen to the music. And secondly, another unrefinement, the game has a selection of tracks, but they don't play sequentially. And you select what music plays in the background in options. And you can't even access options on a level. You have to go out to the start menu. So probably the best you can do in-game is select a different track each time you enter the game. I think I didn't realize this until quite late, so I mostly listened to this track. Which is pleasantly and oddly calming for a track with so much guitar wailing. But this was essentially what played on a loop, interrupted by crowd noise when I zoomed in enough. I also quickly tested a few of the other tracks and they sounded pretty good as well. It's just a tad inconvenient to listen to them all. A multi-genre selection really, except I believe those guitar wails do make a remarkably regular appearance. So maybe that's the central noise. Theming stuff too. Apparently, these ostriches are in great peril. I played for 42 hours, almost completing the original campaign. Although 2 of those hours was me unsuccessfully trying to create my own scenario. plus 3 hours for the mentioned tutorial, and I believe there are 2 other expansion campaigns also. See, a whole lot of game time and I didn't really build water parks or engage in zookeeping. A lot of content, if you can actually play that long. The game is quite draining, and for some reason I was able to play Planet Zoo for quite a bit longer, but still great fun. And it is cheap on Steam, 130 Rand full price, 45 Rand 50 on sale. That's 1 Rand 6 cents per hour of gameplay, which is very good. And it does have an okay download size, as it only takes up 1.31 gigabytes on the hard drive. Not the best, but for this much content, quite good. But unfortunately, it does not work on the Warhorse, so it doesn't even want to start. And my hunch is there's some sort of specific issue, so here are the system requirements, your call. I believe it's easy to run. Stereotypically the game is kid-friendly, but the scenery and theming sometimes may use items in kind of a stereotypic or fetishistic way, as in using an amalgamated pop culture idea of a culture or group of people as decoration, having a few items do a lot of legwork. So if you don't like that, this is in the game, although maybe that's extreme. Other than that, I believe the items are fine. There was only one item I believe that had a truly stereotypic or problematic implementation, and that's in the form of the sleeping bandito. Also, you can go on the rides, and that can actually give you motion sickness or at the very least eye itch. Might be a problem for some, maybe even medically. I'm not a doctor. But you have to admit, visually impressive. This game may be able to produce nausea in and out of game. The game has great roller coaster and path snapping mechanics, offering a great deal of flexibility and creative freedom. It's fun, easy to use, and you can create some great constructs. If some of the most awe-inspiring and extreme rides will be unrideable to your peeps. Path and building snapping of Planet Zoo really reminds me of Tycoon 3, just with more flexibility, curves, etc. And it's quite impressive how such an old game system holds up enough that I can honestly compare them. The game gives you a great canvas for creativity. A lot of themed scenery, buildings to use. Sure, there may be some gaps, but there's more than enough on offer here that I'm willing to gamble that you can make something look like most things, if you have the knack and inclination. The game has a fun balance between park management and creativity. I often got sidetracked, although in all fairness, the park management aspect of the game is actually quite easy. Easy to keep the peeps happy, and as said, the rides can actually give you motion sickness. But feel free to mark that as a con. On the maybe side, no story, just gameplay. Visually, the game is a mixed bag. The graphics have aged, terrain can cause edginess, some gaps in the theming as mentioned, plus it has draw distance issues. But you do have a lot of theming options to compensate for the gaps. The rides look good, and the foliage looks lovely. Far better than its age would belie. On the con side, a technically repetitive campaign. Technically, that's an issue that a lot of management games have. For instance, 2 Point Hospital and the mentioned Planet Zoo. But in all fairness, they kept me busy for longer. And arguably, Planet Zoo did it in a way that built up less antsiness within me, making me feel a bit less guilty about ending early. Just mentioning it for fairness' sake. A management strategy game technically doesn't have to have this issue, or at the very least doesn't have to have this issue be so prevalent. But as said, it is a common issue. And it's not that bad. I still enjoyed my time. And the game is unrefined. The tutorials are long, but maybe don't explain as much as they should. The random nature of the research means that certain items you may never see, and the expansions interact with the original levels that didn't have the new content in mind. That's not necessarily a problem, some people will prefer that. Plus the expansions are free, so there's a limit to how much you complain about them. Plus there's the mentioned music issue of it cutting out when zooming. Come on, play it. The pathing mechanics are nice and snappy, real flexible, allow you to make some horrid scaffolding. Wait. This is too intense for you, but you'd gladly walk on this. This walkway should count as a ride. All it requires is a sled and an emergency room at the bottom. I mean, there's only a tiny railing stopping you from falling on some birds.
Choip, choip, choip. Choip, choip, choip.